What's up, guys? Welcome to Dynasty Drip. I'm Sam. Today's video is going to be a topic I love talking about, and that's going to be 5 players I'm willing to overpay for in Dynasty Fantasy Football. I think this is something that is not talked about enough, where everyone's kind of looking to always win the deal, but sometimes I think just accruing the correct asset on your side of the trade can be worth a slight overpay. If you like what you hear today, remember to like the video and subscribe if you are not already. But let's get it kicked off today with our first player, going to be a quarterback, and that's Baker Mayfield. Now for me, Baker Mayfield, I think, is just more of an elite asset when it comes to a 2 to 3 year window than I think dynasty managers are giving him credit. He was a top 10 quarterback last year. He's basically in the same situation. He did lose his offensive coordinator, which, could potentially have some bumps, but they seem to be cooking late in the season. They re-signed Chris Godwin. Mike Evans is still there. Love Jalen McMillan as a 3. They obviously have the running back core figured out with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. So I don't really know what's not to like when it comes to Baker Mayfield. And I think he's just being undervalued, and I would even overpay at that point. He's currently QB 19 on KTC. I think I'd have him a little closer to 15, 16. My trade idea today is I'm willing to trade a 26 first and a 27 second to go get Baker Mayfield. On the trade calc, I'm counting these as quote-unquote mid picks, but I think if you acquire Baker Mayfield and you have a pretty good core on your team already, I think these could be late picks and you're even getting a better deal. I personally think he's just going to be a difference maker at your QB2 position in Dynasty. Unless you've somehow stumbled upon Lamar and Joe Burrow or something like that, Baker Mayfield's probably going to be a better player than the QB2 or Superflex position you're facing on any given week in Dynasty. Second one's going to be a wide receiver, and I think this guy is going to be a pretty good player this year in redraft. Don't mind taking a shot on him for a 1 to 2 year window, and that's going to be Jauan Jennings, wide receiver for the 49ers. Obviously, they let go of Deebo Samuel. Jennings basically had a quote-unquote breakout year last season. Monster game, obviously that one game. I don't expect that every game at all, but with no Brandon Ayuk to start the season, it's going to be between him and Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall, of course, is going to be valued higher just due to the first-round draft capital, the age. Jennings is 27, going to be 28 soon. But Jennings, I think, is just going to be a plug-and-play starter for your Dynasty team this season. Currently valued wide receiver 48. Don't know how many wide receiver 48s you can say are going to be plug-and-play for you. My trade idea today is, can I move Marvin Mims, a guy with a little, he had a couple big games. Marvin Mims in a 2025 third to go get Jauan Jennings. I think he maybe could get Jennings for a little less, maybe Mims in a 4th, Mims in a future 3rd. But I'm willing to pay Mims and the 25 third to go get Jennings if you're looking for a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 kind of flex type for your team. I think Jauan Jennings fits the bill. I think he's going to catch some balls. I think he's going to be involved with Brock Purdy. He showed good chemistry with him last year. Obviously, no Deebo Samuel, no Brandon Ayuk to start the year. Christian McCaffrey aging. I think it sets up for Jennings to have a role this year. I really, really do. Third one, this one was tough, and this is probably going to be the spiciest one on the list. And, I kind of went back and forth on this, and I'm not saying I don't like the player that I'm saying to trade away for this guy, but the guy I'm suggesting potentially slightly overpaying for is going to be Jayden Reed. Now, hear me out here. I think for me, Jayden Reed currently valued as wide receiver 38 on Keep Trade Cut. And for me, Jayden Reed was potentially 20 wide receiver slots higher maybe a year ago after coming off a really hot year. He looks to be the number 1 wide receiver for Green Bay. I personally still believe he is the number 1 wide receiver for Green Bay. I think it was a funky kind of season for the Packers. Jordan Love got hurt early, never really looked like himself. So for me, if you believe Jordan Love is going to kind of return to his 2023 self, then I think you kind of need to buy into Jayden Reed returning to that self as well. They're going to be without Christian Watson for potentially a lot of the year. So Jayden Reed's going to have a role. And I just think he's the best route runner in that wide receiver core of Dobbs, Wicks, Jayden Reed. And I think LaFleur, who's a very good offensive coach, is going to realize some of his mistakes from last year and how he involved Jayden Reed and try to get Reed involved more into that offense. My trade idea here, and this is what I mean by spicy, is I'm willing to move Jameson Williams to get Jayden Reed. And that is personally just based on my dynasty rankings. I'm not saying you got to get rid of Jameson Williams immediately off your team. I think he's going to have a role. But I think Jameson Williams is always going to profile as more of a boom-bust player, where I think Jayden Reed could potentially work himself into an every week consistent kind of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type, where I think Jameson Williams is more going to be a boom-bust wide receiver 3, and it really just depends on how you want to build your teams. I prefer consistency to boom-bust. And I just think with Williams, kind of the tiebreaker for me is Ben Johnson leaving. I think I would buy into the Williams hype a little more if Ben Johnson was staying with the Lions. But with Ben Johnson going to Chicago, I prefer Jayden Reed, and I'm willing to make this deal. Fourth one is going to be a veteran running back. That is one of my favorite veteran acquisitions if you're looking to get a 1 to 2 year player for a contending dynasty team. And that's going to be Alvin Kamara. For me, I love Kellen Moore going to the Saints. I do think he's just going to continue to use Kamara like he's been used in the past couple of seasons, which has basically been a top 12 running back valued as someone outside potentially the top 24 dynasty running backs. You know, Alvin Kamara is an immense pass catcher. He's good with the ball in his hands. And I think Kellen Moore is going to know who his best players are, and that's Alvin Kamara for sure. I'm curious to see what they do in the draft. The Saints could go a lot of directions. They need help everywhere. But for me, Alvin Kamara is still going to be on the Saints. It's going to be hard to get rid of him with the way his void years and his extensions have worked with the Saints. So give me 2 years of Alvin Kamara paired with Kellen Moore at the price he's going now. Trade idea I have, according to KTC, going to be, can I move 210? So to me, this is thinking, I made the playoffs last year. I'm trying to make a push again. Can I move 210 in Blake Corum? And I think 210 is an interesting offer just to throw out to Kamara, see what they counter with, and I'd be willing to add in a Blake Corum type, a Jalen Wright type, someone to get the deal done if I'm looking for an every week starter for my dynasty team. And that's what I mean by overpay. You know, I understand that this is more expensive than you may want to pay for Kamara, but if you're looking for an RB2, RB3 for your contending dynasty team, this is a trade I would make, and I think this is a trade you need to make to bolster your RB room. And last trade of the day, someone who I just think is probably going to just at least hold his value, and I think he's in a good sense of the rankings at his position. That's going to be TJ Hockenson. You know, he's currently sitting at tight end 5 on KTC. Obviously, Laporta, McBride, Bowers above him. Tyler Warren, currently, we don't really know where he's going, but probably going to be a first-round pick. He's valued above TJ Hockenson. I think some people forget that TJ Hawkinson's just a great tight end in this league. He's not Brock Bowers. He's not Trey McBride. I understand that. But I think he's a lot closer to Sam Laporta than some people give him credit for. Let's not forget he was coming off the knee injury last year, so he's going to be another year removed from what was a very bad ACL tear 2 years ago when he got hit low at the knee coming across the middle. So for me, TJ Hockenson is just a value trade right now that I'm willing to overpay. My trade idea here is, can I upgrade at tight end? I'm going to move Jake Ferguson, and I'm going to toss in Keon Coleman, someone who I think has some upside, but I don't know if he's ever going to be that wide receiver 2 for your dynasty team, and I'm usually willing to move pieces like this. So can I package Keon Coleman and Jake Ferguson to go get TJ Hockenson, who's still only 27 years old, someone who I believe is going to be a top 6 dynasty tight end moving forward. And I think this is a great acquisition that really would just benefit your team for the next 3 to 4 years. Thank you guys for tuning into my channel. Players I'm willing to overpay for. This is Dynasty Drip. I'm Sam. Please subscribe if you haven't. We're building our way to 1,000. We will get there eventually. I appreciate you guys that keep coming back for the videos. You guys have a good day, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments.